Well, Harb, I guess the team must have heard what I had to say from East Skybox 522 toward the end of the first quarter because they picked up play right after that. Do you think my words carried any weight with the team yesterday to inspire them to play better?
No, I just think you're an idiot.
What?
Yeah, you're an overreacting imbecile.
Unbelievable. Well, we'll
It's
talk. We'll try to figure out why am I an imbecile? What are we talking about? Tennessee beat UTEP yesterday. Tennessee basketball bringing some more hardware back to Knoxville, and offensive lineman recruit that's been committed to UT for a while. Is something about to change with that? We'll have some info on that, and college football playoff projections all on this week's Section YY8 podcast.
What are they doing over there, man? Give me a break!
Wide open. The hell are you doing?
Kill him! Kill him! Kill him! Let's go! Woo! Donald Trump! Donald Trump! Donald Trump! Mr. Man! Oh my God! The hostile takeover of Donald Trump on Vince McMahon has happened at WrestleMania 23!
Let's go, Brandon.
You can feel it! Look at Triple H! You can see it! He's about to explode! You can taste it!
All right, welcome back into the Section YY8 podcast. I'm Negative Nice, joined as usual by Harb. Harb is having a pretty good day today. His Cowboys finally won a game.
I was pulling for him to lose.
Really?
Yeah, start the tank. Start the tank.
It's kind of
Get
like
rid,
me with it's kind of like me with the Titans.
get rid of Mike McCarthy's fat ass. Get a top five pick and try to write this thing as best as you can with Lamb's blood, Jerry Jones at the helm. But no, we can't even tank right. Win a game you have no business of winning, even though you tried to lose it
I
twice.
tried to give it away.
Tried to give it away twice, and you still win. Unfortunately, we get Tommy DeVito and the Giants on Thanksgiving for our first home win of 2024, which is absolutely insane to say out loud. But unfortunately, the Cowboys are about to hit a winning streak, and we're not going to get a great draft pick, and we're not going to make the playoffs. This is purgatory.
Sad.
It's absolutely unreal. I finally root for them to lose a game and they win. Kevontae Turpin probably has play of the year.
Yeah, that was pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, it went from being number one on the not top 10 to probably number one on the top 10.
Gee.
Um,
And the Redskins kicker. There's a lot of missed kicks today. The Texans kicker, Fairbairn, missed a field goal that would have tied it. Titans ended up winning. Thought they would try to tank this year and they, with the quarterback they've got out there on the field, Will Levis, they might be trying to tank. He threw and he got away with it today, but he threw one of his patented devastating interceptions. I don't know if you saw it, Harbin. They were down, or no, sorry. Titans were up 23-17, driving. He got sacked, knocked him out of field goal range. It was 3rd and like 9. And he threw it right to a cornerback who was standing right in his line of sight. And the cornerback ran it to the house for a pick 6. I don't know what it's going to take for people. There's still some people out there. I saw tweets today. There's still some people out there that think this guy's a good quarterback. He's not. He sucks. He sucked at Kentucky. He sucks in Nashville. And I know they're going to roll him out there this year because they don't have anybody. I mean, Mason Rudolph's no good. They've invested a lot in this guy, so they're going to roll him out there. They almost have to, but he did it again today. And people, I don't know why you're surprised that he does. It's every single week. It's some kind of devastating, back-breaking turnover that this guy commits. I mean, we saw it firsthand when Tennessee played Kentucky over the 2 years he was there, or 3 years, whatever it was. It was every game. That last game in 22 in Neyland Stadium, I think he threw 3 interceptions. Now one of them wasn't really on him, but the other 2, I mean, it's every game. But anyways, Titans and Cowboys, they can't tank to save their lives, can they?
No. And it was the perfect scenario for us, you know. Washington had lost 2 games in a row. It felt like a bounce back game for them. They couldn't get out of their own way. This is Dan Quinn showing his true colors. I like Dan Quinn. He did a lot in Dallas. I think we won 1 playoff game while he was here, so he did a whole lot. The narrative around Dan Quinn when he was in Atlanta is gonna get resurfaced now. Even though I do like Jaden Daniels, and if I have to pull for anybody in the NFC East, I'd pick Washington. At least they're fun. But anyway, I just hope this doesn't cloud the judgment of getting rid of Mike McCarthy. Hey, this might be something we can agree on. Fire Mike McCarthy and hire Mike Vrabel. I'm in.
Yeah, that'd be a good hire.
I think that's a very good realistic option. Like, I'm not going for an A+ home run hire, which I think that would be a very good hire, don't get me wrong, but I think that's a really good realistic hire.
The guy won a bunch of football games with the Titans. I mean, he can coach. He's a good coach.
Yeah, and he would push the envelope to beef up the offensive line, get a running back in there. So I'm all for it.
Well, Harbin, let's dive in. Enough talk about your Cowboys taking down the Redskins today and the Titans taking down the Houston Texans, which was kind of funny because the Titans used to be in Houston, and it's always funny when they beat Houston. Saw a guy in the crowd wearing an Oilers sweatshirt today, just giving Texans fans the business. But anyway, a lot to talk about on this week's show. Thanksgiving edition. Tennessee beat UTEP, Texas Western yesterday, 56-0. A lot of chaos in college football yesterday, I guess you could say, to say the least, which benefited the Volunteers. We'll get into that. And then I mentioned in the open, there was an offensive lineman that's been committed to Tennessee for quite a while. National Signing Day's a couple weeks away, and he made a surprise visit somewhere, so we'll get into that. But first, let's talk Tennessee UTEP. I don't know that there's really a whole lot to break down in this game. UTEP is one of the worst teams in college football. Tennessee proved that they're probably a top 10 team yesterday by the way they dismantled UTEP. But it was a slow start for Tennessee, and it's kind of been the theme of this football team this year. They come out, not that they're necessarily not playing hard or amped up, but they do get off to slow starts, especially on the offensive side of the football. Takes them a while to get going. And that happened again yesterday, but it was kind of the theme of the whole team yesterday there in the first quarter. I'm not saying they were sleepwalking, but little mistakes, here and there. They just looked off their game. Nico was throwing balls behind his receivers, wasn't sharp. Offensive line wasn't very sharp to come out of the gate. We didn't really try to run the football a whole lot. Defense was giving up some chunk plays. Now, I will say UTEP emptied the playbook yesterday. They left it all out there. But, toward the end of the first quarter, somewhere in the second quarter, things started to click and Tennessee started running away from UTEP. I know you were working yesterday. Did you get to watch any of the game?
Paying attention for long at a time, no. And we had sound on, had it on behind us, so I obviously caught the highlights. And if I had a slow pocket, I'd turn around and watch it. But as far as actually paying attention and watching the whole game, not really.
So, like I said, there's not I mean, in a game like this, what do you talk about? I mean, Tennessee was obviously superior team, superior program to UTEP. Just some notes, some stats coming from the game. Nico was 17 of 23, 209, 4 touchdowns. Dylan Sampson set the single season record, passing James Littleman Stewart with his 22nd touchdown of the year. He had 11 carries, 77 yards. Peyton Lewis, Cameron Seldom all had multiple carries chipped in. Brew McCoy, 2 touchdowns. Ethan Davis, Squirrel White tacked on the other 2. Let's see here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 players caught a pass yesterday. So really spreading the wealth. I think Tennessee, you would probably agree, did what they needed to do. They came out, they definitely covered the spread of 40.5 or whatever it was. They took care of business, did what they needed to do. I don't know that they got style points out of that yesterday, but it also looks pretty good on the bottom line or the ticker when it says Tennessee 56, UTEP 0. Tennessee did what they needed to do yesterday, and we'll talk about here in a minute. They got a little help from some of our friends in the SEC.
Yeah, massive Saturday for the Vols. In the past, we've gotten this type of help and squandered these opportunities, which we'll also get into when we get into that. It is now this team's job to not squander this opportunity and take full advantage of it. You've pretty much gotten the rest of your season handed to you on a silver platter this weekend to go and take advantage of it.
Yes. So let's jump in. Anything else you want to talk about from the UTEP game? It was senior day. I mean,
yeah, there actually is. I do want to say one thing.
Okay.
On Saturday, Nice texted into our group message at 1:12 p.m. The game started at 1 for those keeping track at home. He said, Nico sucks. At 1:28 p.m., he responded again and said, we suck. Credit to everybody in this group message. Nobody responded.
And I was sitting next to one of these people in the group message, by the way.
At 5:47 p.m., I responded and said, Nice, we won by 56. That's pretty much all we need to cover. As far as Nico goes, he was 17 of 23, 210 yards, 4 touchdowns. Most passing touchdowns in one game in his young collegiate career.
Nice. I did not know that.
Yeah. Most passing touchdowns, not total, or
Yes.
maybe total touchdowns too. I don't know.
Yes. I don't
But
know.
most passing touchdowns in a game. Shout out to you, young man. I mean, like you said, there's not a whole lot to talk about. It was a slow start. I understand the frustration, but figured it out, did what you needed to do, took care of business. I mean, a couple guys got banged up, and nobody got seriously injured, so that's another win. Oh, dude, I mean, did James Pierce Jr. come back in the game? I do remember him coming off the field.
I
He
don't
okay?
know. I don't know.
We haven't heard anything, so that's good news.
I
No
haven't
news.
heard anything about any injuries that would keep him out of the lineup this week.
No news is good news in that regard. So, yeah, you went about 56 on senior day. Nothing wild happened, and you got some help across the conference. Would you like me to start, or would you like to start?
Uh, I'll let you go, Harb.
Well, I'll go in chronological order of when these things happened. First on the docket, with the Ole Miss Rebels traveling to Gainesville, taking on the Gators. This was one of the 6 or 7 dominoes that could have fallen to help Tennessee get back into the playoff. If you remember back on the playoff show, the rankings, we were the first team out. So we didn't need a ton of help. There was just a ton of things that could help us. But the first one on the docket was Florida beating Ole Miss. And it wasn't a crazy long shot, but it wasn't extremely likely. Especially with Ole Miss still playing for their season, but as good as they've been this year. Long story short, Florida wins 24-17, and Jackson Dart throws 3 interceptions. I think he technically threw 4, and one of them got caught back. Either way,
Yeah.
a lot of interceptions. Florida honestly kept trying to give them chances at the end, and he just kept throwing interceptions. 2 of them, there wasn't a receiver within 10 yards of where the ball got picked off, whether that be receiver or quarterback's fault. I don't know. Be damn honest with you, I don't care.
Too bad.
I am never happy with Florida winning, but by God was I happy when Ole Miss lost.
So up in the box, no one would say go Gators. They just said play hard reptiles or something like that. But I did notice they showed it on video on some clip I saw today that Tennessee fans were doing the Gator chomp in Neyland Stadium. Now that is unacceptable.
Those
Never
are
do
my
that.
winners and losers of the week.
Yes. And we'll
Those
get
are
to
my,
that. We'll get to that later. Or do you want to go ahead and get it out of the way?
no, I'll get it out of the way. Those
Yeah.
are my haters and losers of the week. I don't care. I never will care. I mean, Florida's athletic department could take down a terrorist organization, and I wouldn't have Gator jump ever.
No. No.
I think I worded that as best as I could.
I like it.
0% chance. You never do that under any circumstance. Period. For that reason, and even if it's a child, I'll give the child. I did see a video of a child doing it. I'll give the child a pass. I'll put double the blame on his parents.
It wasn't Day Day and Dane, was it?
No, this child was much larger than Dane.
Oh.
Yeah, definitely was not Dane. He's not catching a stray here.
Okay.
But if your child did the gator chomp and got clipped, you get double the shame as the parent because that's poor parenting. However, I was very happy what transpired in Gainesville.
Yes.
It helped us. It helped us a couple of reasons, really. Obviously, it knocks no Ole Miss out of the playoffs. But that Florida win is slowly looking better and better. It really is. The last 2 weeks, they take down LSU and Ole Miss. At first, when we beat Florida, we're like, oh God, like that was a drag. Like they're not any good. Blah blah blah. I believe they're quietly 7-4. Am I wrong? Am I wrong in that, or are they 6?
No, they are 6-5.
Okay,
But they've
still
got Florida State next week, so very good opportunity to be 7-5.
right. Hell, I'm trying to find it. There it is. Florida. Yeah, they've won back-to-back games.
Mm-hmm.
They obviously fell at Texas and against Georgia on neutral field. I don't know. That game's looking better and better. If you're making a case for Florida, which I'm going to for a second because we beat them and it makes us look better, they had Georgia on the ropes when Lagway got hurt. And then you go into Austin, Texas with your third string quarterback. What can you expect? So I will shout out Lane Kiffin for finally cashing in that favor he owes us 15
Yeah.
years. Thank you very much, Lane.
Yes,
I,
yes,
I, I
sir.
believe his late father Monty was in his ear at halftime. And he was like, help, help them hillbillies out.
Yeah.
Help them out in the Appalachians. So next, well, at the same time, uh, was in Columbus, Ohio, or Ohio State played Indiana. And I think this is at the bottom of the totem pole of what helped us out.
Mm-hmm.
We had the Buckeyes take on the Hoosiers, and a lot of people believed that if Indiana didn't really hang around, they may or may not fall out. I don't necessarily agree with that. Either way, Ohio State handled Indiana, which most people believed would happen. I don't think they thought it would be quite this point margin, but the Buckeyes win 38-15. Game was never really in jeopardy from what I saw.
Mm-mm.
I guess I didn't really get to pay attention to much of it. Indiana plays their first ranked opponent, which it was Ohio State on the road. So I'll give them a little bit of slack. We lose by over 3 touchdowns. It's a rough look. I still think they're firmly in. Maybe not 100% in, but I think they're firmly in.
Yeah, I don't know. I've gone back and forth. I was saying all week leading into that game that if Ohio State beat them by 3 or 4 scores, that Indiana would be out. But I think with what happened yesterday with Alabama losing, which you'll get to here in a minute, and Ole Miss losing, I think it kind of, I don't know. I can't get a read on what this committee wants to do, but it probably helped them out that those other teams lost. BYU lost. So it kind of helped them out a little bit. I still think what seed were they last week? What, 6 or 7, something like 5? I,
5 or 6.
I mean, the projections I'm seeing has Tennessee 9 and Georgia 8, which that's probably not going to stay that way because of where Georgia is going to be in the SEC championship game. I could see Indiana fall into that 9, 10, 11 range probably. There's the problem I have with Indiana is their schedule is so weak. And I know last week you said you can't blame them because that's who's on their schedule, but honestly, you kind of can blame them a little bit. They had a method to their madness because they bought out games with Louisville and a couple other teams in order to get themselves bowl eligible, which I understand that. They did not think that they were going to be 10-0 going into the horseshoe with the playoffs on the line. But it's kind of, I don't think it's going to cost them, but it could. Playing the 106 ranked schedule in the country, I'm guessing it increased with Ohio State. being on there this weekend. But regardless, still not very good. They have no good wins. I think their best win was either Michigan or Washington. They were in the mid to low 40s, or mid to high 40s. So I mean, honestly, I see both sides of it. I mean, yeah, they beat who they're supposed to beat, who's on their schedule, but they also took opportunities away to make themselves look better. I'm not saying they would have beat Louisville. Louisville's a decent football team, but honestly, when this happened, I don't know when this happened, but I can pretty much guarantee you that Coach Signetti and the AD at Indiana were not envisioning. They may have wanted it to be 10-0, but like, hey, we're trying to build this thing up. Let's try to get to a bowl game, get these kids some practice and start building this thing. And here they are 10-0 going into Columbus. So, you know, I think they're long story short, I think they're still in, but they cannot lose to Purdue next weekend. They lose to Purdue, they're out. And that's going to open the door for somebody like a Clemson or, God forbid, Alabama, because they're already trying. Day pointed it out on Twitter today. Media's already trying to spin Alabama, and you're going to get to them in a second. They're already trying to spin in, is Alabama out? I mean, they're asking the question. It's the same crap they pull with Notre Dame. Um, so an Indiana loss could open the door for something like that. I mean, Clemson's not great. I mean, they're a good football team, but I don't know if they're a playoff team, but they might find their way in because of attrition.
I got a couple arguments for Indiana. I'm not hating on Indiana. I'm really not. Like we said, when these schedules were made, and even when they bought out of these games, when they bought out of those games, they weren't thinking playoff. They were thinking about, let's find a way to 6 wins. That way we can get one more game for these players and try to build something here. And that's what, I mean, and that's what Indiana has been for 40 years or longer, ever since Corso left. Or Holt, yeah.
Yeah,
Uh,
Corso.
yeah. Um, so you can't blame them. And like we said, they're 10-0. You can only beat who you play. That's that's my argument with Boise State, which that's a completely different topic. You can only beat who you play. Um, and then if you play the number 2 ranked team in the country on the road and you lose, I mean, it is what it is. Does that mean that you're not a top 12 team? No, it just means that you're not a top 2 team. It is what it is. I don't know. I mean, how confident would you be in Tennessee winning at Ohio State?
It'd be between 40 and 50%. Kind of
I,
like kind of like
I
the
think
percentage
got
was to
a,
go to Georgia last week and win. I think it was somewhere in the mid to low 40s.
I think you've got a little bit of the orange Kool-Aid going. I don't, personal opinion.
You think Ohio State's better than Georgia?
I think they're about the same,
I mean, that's what the
maybe.
percentage was. I think we were 42 or 43% FPI to
I
go
don't
down there
know.
and win.
I understand what you're saying, but I don't know. All I'm
We
saying is,
would we win up
all,
there? Probably not. If that, yeah,
there's
I would say we would
probably,
probably not win.
like, if every single team in the country played at Ohio State, maybe one team is favored at Ohio State, maybe, and it's Oregon. That's the only one. I can't imagine us or Texas or Georgia or Alabama before this weekend would be favored at Ohio State. But anyway, we're getting a little off topic here. Indiana's still squarely in. You can't, and in my opinion, you can't drop them for losing to the number 2 ranked team on the road from, I think they were 5 in the actual rankings. You can't drop them from like 5 to 13. Even, I mean, they didn't get beat by 50. They lost by 3 touchdowns, but it wasn't like bloodbath material.
The thing they got to look out for is when BYU lost to Kansas last week, they punished BYU quite a bit. They dropped them quite a bit. And that was but I know it's different teams. But
big difference between Kansas and Ohio State.
Right. I'm just saying when a team has a schedule like BYU and then they go on the road and lose to somebody like Kansas, they dropped them. Now, what are they going to do with Indiana, who has a probably worse schedule and went on the road and jumped out 7-0 on Ohio State and then gave up 38 unanswered and got blown out, and then they scored 15. Actually, no, it was 31 unanswered. They scored a touchdown to get it to touchdown and a 2-point conversion, and Ohio State scored. So 38-15, it was never really close, like you said. But I get what you're saying.
Yeah. They're still in. They're probably going to be around, in my opinion, between 9 and 12. They're going to be in the bottom portion, but they're still going to be in. And honestly, not a bad spot to be if you're Indiana. You have 1-10 Purdue left. You're not going to the Big Ten championship game. All you got to do is beat them, and you're still in if you're Indiana. But what we've seen is I don't know if the committee really uses logic. So I guess we'll see on Tuesday. But in my opinion, I think Indiana is still in a fine position. They're going to have a road game now. But it is what it is. It's a way better spot than they thought they would be in 6 weeks ago.
It looks like I'm looking at the projections on ESPN, and we'll find some others, but it looks like most everybody has Indiana anywhere between 9 and 11. I don't see anybody that has them at 8 or higher. Here's one that's got them at 11. There's a couple that have them at 11. Most of them have it at 9 or 10. So I think they're going to be in that 9-11 range probably.
So moving on. Next that I want to talk about, this game happened last, but I want to save the crown jewel for last. Texas A&M traveled to Auburn, Alabama. Auburn's absolutely battling for bowl eligibility. They're 4-6 going into this game, and they're finishing the season with, at the time, 2 top 15 teams to end the season. And I don't know if you got to watch this game.
Oh, yes. We watched it in my house.
Absolute barn burner. Absolute barn burner. It was incredible. Now that I'm thinking of it, I'm sure Reagan was absolutely going wild. So,
oh yeah,
shout out to her. I'm sure she had a great night.
Did you see Auburn fans storm the field?
Yeah,
I can't get over that.
Well, that's a topic that we're gonna have to touch here in a second on. Well, we're gonna have to spend a few minutes on that in general.
I gotcha.
But focusing on the game, wild game. Goes to 4 overtimes. Back and forth. Neither team could convert in 3rd overtime. Auburn converts on the 2-point conversion in the 4th overtime. A&M has a guy that's pretty damn near wide open, and he drops it. I'm not going to say his name because I'm sure he already feels bad enough about it. The Texas A&M's playoff chances are pretty much dead now. Yeah. After everybody wrote them off after week 1, and they stormed back, and everybody was like, oh, well, actually, they may make it because they look a lot better. And then who beat who? I always forget this. Who's their first conference loss?
South Carolina.
South Carolina. South Carolina beats them, and everybody forgets about them again. Well, they win a few more pretty good games. They beat LSU. Well, I was like, okay, they're back. And with Ole Miss going down, and obviously Alabama going down, A&M fans around halftime, well, not at halftime because they were getting their doors blown off at halftime, but they're like, man, if we can somehow pull this out, like we can backdoor our way into this playoff. And you fall victim to the haunted place that is Jordan Hare Stadium. That place is a weird, weird place to play, especially at night, especially when Auburn's an underdog. It don't matter if Gus Malzahn or Gene Chizik or Hugh Freeze is coaching, or if Nathan Neese ends up being the head coach at Auburn. If it's a home night game and they're an underdog, you are subject to an upset. And I don't know. That was honestly one of my favorite games of the day.
It was wild.
Yeah, it was electric. But here's something to keep an eye out on. Texas A&M plays Texas the last week of the season. If Texas A&M beats Texas, to my calculations, I may be wrong. If Tennessee beats Vandy, it's a Georgia-Tennessee rematch in Atlanta. It's not? Does A&M get there?
So from what I saw last night and read in SEC Network, I saw it on SEC Final this morning. Georgia has clinched a berth in the SEC title game, and the winner of Texas A&M will go to Atlanta.
Okay, well, that's great news for Tennessee then.
Oh yeah,
Great.
It just keeps getting better.
Yeah, that's perfect. Okay. I didn't know how it would work if A&M won. I didn't know if overall record meant anything.
I don't know. I haven't looked into the tiebreakers. So I don't know. That's what I was talking to Nick Bernard about this morning. He kind of thought the same way you were thinking. And I was like, well, I saw on SEC Network that the winner of Texas A&M will go to the SEC title game. While you're talking, I'll confirm that.
That's perfect. Which the committee has not verbatim, but danced around saying that if a team is going into a conference championship game and they lose, they will not punish the team for losing in the conference championship. But obviously, that's not guaranteed. We don't know that. I personally think that's how it should be, whether it benefits Tennessee or not. I think that's how it should be. I've said that multiple times throughout the last couple of weeks. If you qualify for a game where only 2 out of 16 or 18 teams qualify for, it shouldn't punish you unless you lose by 50. That's how it should be. But
I don't disagree.
That's great.
You just don't know what the committee is going to do, but it is. I just looked it up. It is the winner of the Lone Star Showdown, Texas A&M. Texas is at A&M. Not that rivalry needed anything else to throw on it. They haven't met in what?
10 years,
10 years, 10, 11 years now. And now they've got this. So all on the line to go to Atlanta. Texas, I don't think if they lose that they will fall out of the playoffs. A&M has nothing to lose now except another game because they're not going to the playoffs unless they win 2 in a row here. So it'll be an interesting game to watch Saturday.
It may be interesting to see if Texas does drop out. Honestly, I mean, let's look at this. Texas, as it sits right now, may go down as having the easiest SEC schedule of the modern era. They have no ranked wins. They lost by 2 scores on their home field to Georgia. And let's just say A&M beats them by 10, for example. The two ranked teams that you play beat you by double digits, one at home and one on the road. And you don't have an opportunity to win your conference. And you're sitting at 10-2, and your best win is either Vanderbilt or Arkansas, depending on how this final week goes. In a non-biased viewpoint, how do they have a case?
They honestly, I mean, I think we said this last week. You look at their schedule. They have wins over Colorado State, at Michigan, Texas San Antonio, Louisiana Monroe, Mississippi State, Oklahoma, lost to Georgia, a win at Vandy, which could be probably considered their best win right now. Vandy's 6-5, but they've got a win over Florida, who's now 6-5. They got a win over Arkansas, who's now 6-5, and a win over Kentucky, who is 4-7, not going to a bowl game. Oklahoma's 6-5 now after their trouncing of Alabama last night. But I mean, I don't know who the best win out of that group of 6-5 teams are. But it's kind of like Tennessee. I mean, Tennessee has a win over Alabama and then a bunch of wins over Oklahoma, Florida. Who am I missing here? Oklahoma and Florida. NC State is right there on the cusp of bowl eligibility. So kind of the same thing, but we have a marquee win, you could say, where Texas does not.
Yeah.
What about Alabama? That was the big one yesterday.
And that's what I was about to get into. The crown jewel of Saturday. The Alabama Crimson Tide traveled to Norman, Oklahoma. And let's just be honest, they got their ass beat. They got trounced. Alabama gets up 3-0. It felt like they were sputtering, but it like the wheels were spinning. Felt like they were going to get something going eventually and pull away. And by God, did the opposite happen in the second half? Was it 3-3 at halftime, or was Oklahoma up 10? Yeah, it was 3-3.
I think it was 3-3.
And in the most respectful and disrespectful way I can possibly say this, Jalen Milroe looked like radio out there last night. I mean, shout out Brent Venables. I don't know if he's going to last at Oklahoma as a head coach, but before he got that job, he was widely considered the best defensive coordinator in the country.
Mm-hmm.
He's a defensive mind. Everybody knows that. He followed the blueprint that essentially we laid down, and it's make Jalen Milroe play quarterback, and Alabama will not beat you. That's exactly what they did. I'm not looking at the numbers right now. You can confirm this. I think Jalen Milroe had like 16 rushes for 8 yards, or vice versa. It was something like that. When you don't let him run rampant, Alabama is a mediocre football team. And we saw that. Oklahoma is not very good this year. And also, I think a lot of people aren't aware of this. 4 of Oklahoma's starting 5 offensive linemen were out last night, and they still beat Alabama by 3 touchdowns. I think that's stat. I think that's stat of the day.
Yeah, that was crazy. They were talking about that during the game last night. That was crazy.
Jalen Milroe throws 3 picks. 2 of them were on screens, which is just hilarious to me.
I'm looking at his stats here. He was 11 of 26 for 164 yards, 3 interceptions, and he rushed 15 times for 7 yards. Compare that to Jackson Arnold last night, who we got benched when we played Oklahoma. He was 9 of 11, 68 yards. He also carried the ball 25 times for 131 yards. And their running back, Xavier Robinson, rushed the ball 18 times for 107 yards. Total, Oklahoma rushed the ball 49 times for 260 yards against Alabama last night. But you were right. You said it a lot, Harb. Make Jalen Milroe play quarterback and see what happens.
Hey, what's Saban's patented line that it feels like he said it every single week on game day? Oklahoma ran through Alabama like shit through a tin horn. Yeah, it just is what it is. And Oklahoma's defense dominated. I know they scored once, obviously forced at least 3 turnovers. I think they forced 4. I think they got a fumble in there somewhere. It's absolute domination. Alabama pisses away their season when all they had to do was beat Oklahoma and Auburn to make it to the playoff. The fake news media is going to try to tell you that Alabama is still going to make it in, and they're just not. They're just not. It's going to be a tough pill to swallow. It's their turn going to the Gator Bowl.
Yes. Yes. Oh, I love it.
And I don't want to go too far into it until we play Vanderbilt and ultimately, hopefully, and pray to God we win. But it's beautiful. It's beautiful. It really is.
So, all that being said, this has helped Tennessee tremendously. I mean, we were after last week's rankings, we kind of knew it was coming, but it still sucked to hear it. Tennessee was ranked 11th, but the first team out of the playoff bracket due to Boise State and BYU being in because of automatic bids. But that's all changed now with Ole Miss and Alabama losing. They have to be out. They will, I would assume, will be out. And that's going to move Tennessee up, to that 9 or 10 spot. I saw a couple projections had us at 11, whatever. That lays it all out for this weekend. Tennessee has to go to Nashville. And, normally we go to Nashville. This game is we're not even thinking about this game being, and sometimes it is. My uncle was talking about how sometimes we struggle in this game, and it is a rivalry game. It may not be to us, but it is to them. It's their Super Bowl, and they're a little bit better this year. I can give Vandy credit. They're 6-5. They're going to go to a bowl game. They got a quarterback who doesn't quit, who wants to win, and almost wills his team to win sometimes. But Tennessee's got it laid out. I mean, they're, at last I looked, 10-point favorites. They're 80% chance to win, according to FPI. I mean, it's all laying out there in front of us. If Tennessee goes to First Bank Stadium in Nashville in front of 20 or 30,000 Tennessee fans, however many's going to be there, and beats Vandy, doesn't matter if they win 17-10 or 47-21. Tennessee wins. They are most likely punching their ticket to the playoffs. Now, where does that mean? That's still to be decided. We still got 2 more weeks of football to play. But I'm probably guessing Tennessee's going to be in that 9, 10, 11 range this weekend. I'd say they'll probably move up to 9 overall, and then probably be the 10 seed this week. A lot of projections had us, like I said, as the 9 seed playing Georgia. I don't think that will stay that way, especially if Georgia wins the SEC championship. They're going to be in the top 4, or top 5 at least. So, I mean, you're looking at 10. We were kind of joking last night. I was like, God, after all I said about my miserable trip to Georgia, Tennessee's going to go back there and play in the first round of the playoffs, and my butt's going to be back down there again, two times in a month and a half. I don't see that happening, though. Not me not going, but Tennessee playing Georgia. I mean, I guess it could. I don't think it's very likely. I think you're going to see Tennessee, if things play out. If it's, say, Tennessee wins against Vandy, Penn State has got a cupcake against Maryland this weekend. I think you're going to see Tennessee maybe matched up with a Penn State. Maybe in this week's standings, but maybe going forward. There is an outside chance if some things go right that Tennessee can still host. We were kind of joking this afternoon that last week we were outside looking in, and there's some percentage chances Tennessee can host a game. I mean, it would probably be more likely the 8-9 game. I don't see them going up to like a 7-10 game, but there's a real chance Tennessee could host if they win Saturday and somebody slips up in front of them. It could happen. It could definitely happen. So that's not off the table. I think the FPI has Tennessee is like 46% chance to host a home playoff game at this point. Last week it was way, way, way lower than that. It was like in the teens or below the teens. And I think our chances to make the playoffs are now somewhere in the 70s. I'll look that up, but everything's back on the table for Tennessee. They got to go out there and take care of business. First things first, 12 o'clock, go out there and take care of business and beat Vanderbilt. Your whole season's here in front of you. Go out there and take care of business. Don't squander it like Butch Jones and his team in 16 squandered the Sugar Bowl out there. Don't do that. Be better. We are better than that team. Be better than that. Go out there and take care of business and go to the playoffs and see what happens.
And don't squander it like you did 2 years ago in Columbia.
Yes.
We won't get into that. But based off quick math, just off the top of my head, here's how I'm envisioning the playoff unfolding as long as nothing absolutely insane happens this final week. Obviously, you've got the 5 conference champions getting in. As of right now, it's the ACC champion, SEC, Big 10, Big 12, and I'm putting Boise State at the other one. I think Boise State's going to get the 4 seed. The Big 12 champion's probably going to get the 5 seed. We'll see. But outside of that, more than likely, the Big 10 championship game is going to be Oregon, Ohio State. The loser of that game, in my opinion, is going to be the 6th seed. Then after that, let's just say it's, just for conversation's sake, let's say it's Texas, Georgia in the SEC championship game. I think the loser of that is the 7 or 8 seed. Either way, I think the loser of that game hosts a playoff game. Well, if Georgia loses, they may not because I'll have 3 losses. But either way, loser of that game still in. Penn State does not have to play. They're in. Indiana does not have to play in the Big Ten championship game. They're in. As long as Notre Dame doesn't do anything stupid, they're in. And if Tennessee beats Vanderbilt, they're obviously in. So that's 11 teams right there.
Mm-hmm.
SMU's knocking on the door, and Miami's currently in. If those 2 teams play each other, I don't think both of them get in.
Mm-mm.
So one of them is obviously eliminated. That 12th spot, without looking at it, there's going to be a lot of debate on who gets that 12 spot. And ESPN's pushing for Bama to still be close to that. And there's a few teams that could be close to that. I don't know how it unfolds, really.
I mean, really, really right now, the way they've got it projection wise that I've read this afternoon is you had either Ohio State or Oregon at 1, depending on who picked who to win the Big Ten. And then the loser of that game is probably the 5 seed. Then you had combination of SEC champ in there. ACC champ in there, which could be Miami or SMU, probably more than likely. Big 12 champions either going to be Arizona State or help me out here, Harbin. I can't remember who they might play. Anyways,
BYU's
um,
mix, are they not, for the Big
I,
12?
let's see. They fell so far in the.
Or Kansas State may backdoor their way into it again.
Yeah, I'll have to look that up. But anyways, they had Arizona State in there as I think the 12 seed, and then they had Boise State as the 5 seed as the group of 5 champion. Um, so Boise State wins their conference championship game coming up. They're in. If the winner of SMU Miami is more than likely going to be in, I don't see either one of them staying in. I don't know about that though, Harbin. I mean, do they punish Miami or SMU? I mean, do they punish Miami if they lose?
They,
It's only their
they
second loss.
they've they've halfway said if you're in going into a conference championship game and you lose, you're not going to get punished. So we'll see.
It's going to be
But,
interesting. That ACC
but
title game's the one that's going to be interesting because
marketing
Miami's in, but they're kind of
marketing
toward
has
the.
a lot to do with it.
Yeah. I mean, but
Brand recognition.
Miami's in, but they're kind of lower in the standings. SMU's not in. Um,
I'll put it this way: if SMU and Miami play in the ACC championship game, if Miami wins, SMU is not in the playoff. But if
yes.
SMU wins, Miami probably gets that last spot.
Looking at the playoff percentages here, this might help us out a little. So Texas, Ohio State, near 100% chance. Notre Dame's at 90%. Georgia, 90%. Oregon, 99%. Penn State, 98%. Indiana is still at 97%. So you could say, according to FPI, that those teams are in. So the ones to watch here, you've got Alabama still here, ranked 4th in the FPI, but their playoff percentages have plummeted to 37%. Ole Miss is still ranked 6th, but their playoff percentages are 6%. So they're done. So those 2 teams are out. But then you've got 3 teams here that are close to clinching berths, but they haven't. Tennessee's one of them, 76% chance to make the playoffs. This time last week, it was 68%. So the win over UMass coupled with everything else has vaulted Tennessee up quite a bit. Miami is at 79%. SMU's at 62%. So that tells me that, like you said, Miami wins, they're in. SMU loses, they're out. SMU wins, obviously they're in. Does Miami have enough to hang on to get in? And I think Tennessee would still be in if that happened. It'd probably drop a spot or 2, but well, not necessarily. But I think your field is pretty much taking shape. It's going to be that last spot, probably. I mean, the players in that are probably Clemson, SMU. I don't know who else is out there, to be honest, besides an Alabama. Um, I, I mean, South Carolina's kind of hovering around here. They got a 23% chance to get in. Clemson's at 23. So that's a big game this weekend. I mean, Clemson, South Carolina can knock somebody out of the race. I mean, can South Carolina knock Clemson out of the race? And if they do, where does that vault them up? Are they kind of out there hovering, waiting for more chaos to happen? I don't think they will get in, but I don't know. I mean, it's crazy. It's just a lot of unknowns because we've never gone through this before. So, moral of the story here, Harbin, Tennessee needs to win. Tennessee has got to go out there, JWTDG, and come back to Knoxville. And I think we can all safely say that Tennessee's in the playoffs, the first ever playoffs. What
If we beat,
if we when we beat Vanderbilt? I'm more uneasy about this game than I've been in a while. But I still think Tennessee's the better team. Um, but we all know how Tennessee plays on the road under Josh Heupel. But the only good thing going for us, it is a day game. There'll be no lights on. I hope there's no lights on. at First Bank Stadium, but it's not going to be dark. And Tennessee seems to perform better when they play on the road against teams they're supposed to beat. Sometimes.
I wouldn't even say that. We play well in them games.
Yes.
I mean, we did the splits about a month ago of 3:30 and 7 o'clock kickoffs. It's ugly.
Yeah.
Them games we have a pretty damn good track record on the road. So that's what I have going for us. I believe Tennessee has opened up as an 11.5 point favorite,
Yes.
which is also good.
But it's dropped to 10. It's already dropped to 10.
Yeah, people are going to hammer Vanderbilt. They should. I mean, both of our losses come on the road. It's the best Vandy team in 10 years. Why wouldn't they? But we don't need style points. Just win the damn game.
Yeah.
However, with the battered ball syndrome that I have, I've already put into my brain that we've lost just to make the process a little easier if it actually does happen. And if you want to call me a loser and a B word for that, that's fine. I don't care. But I'm going in just expecting the worst, and if the best happens, I'll be over the moon. That's just my newfound philosophy.
This Vandy team, I'm not saying they're the same kind of team, but they're very similar to Arkansas as far as rankings and analytics go. Both teams are now 6-5. Arkansas is 32nd. Vandy's 38. This game's on the road. It's a very different stadium than Donald W. Reynolds Razorback Stadium in Fayetteville. First Bank Stadium is under construction. Half the stadium's under being rebuilt. So there's not going to be a lot of people there. It's more than likely going to be a home game for Tennessee as far as fans go. So, I mean, I think Tennessee wins this game. But I don't think it's going to be the usual cakewalk like we normally go out there and do. I hope these guys understand what's on the line. And I think you could tell yesterday, my uncle made this point. When they ran through the tee after senior day, they just kind of trotted through. And my uncle said, look at them, man. There's just no fire about them. They're going to come out slow. And they did. But after that Florida score was announced, I mean, we were watching it in the skybox yesterday. The whole stadium cheered. Everybody in the East skybox was cheering. It was like a different pep in their step when they left the field. They just beat a terrible UTEP team, 56-0. Players were running off the field, high-fiving, just pumped, way more energy than they had when they ran onto the field to play the game. So I hope they understand. I'm sure they do. What's at stake this weekend? Win, you're more than likely in the playoffs, and your season. Well, their season's going to continue anyways because they're going to go to a bowl game. But your season legitimately continues. You're not going to go play an exhibition game somewhere. You're going to go play for a national title or for a chance to go play for a national title. That's what's on the line here. So I think Tennessee wins this game. I don't think it's a blowout. I think might be kind of a tight game back and forth with Tennessee leading most of the way, and we kind of edge out at the end. But I hope it's a blowout in our favor. That would be nice. Go out there and win about 41-17 or 41-21, something like that. But this Vandy team's shown that they're not going to lay over. I don't know how they're competing with these teams as poorly as they've recruited over the years, but LSU's not good, and they lost to them last night, 24-17. But that game was tied back and forth. I think Tennessee's better than LSU. But they played Texas tough this year. We talked about Texas earlier. I do have a little bit of the BVS. Some of it went away after we won the baseball national title in Omaha this year. But I'm confident Tennessee goes out there and wins, although I'm guarded, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, I agree. You got to protect your heart.
I'll have
Nobody,
my cup. I'll have a cup on Saturday.
you got to protect your heart. Nobody else is going to do it for you.
Correct.
So,
Uh, well, that's something everybody keep your eye on is the playoff race. I mean, it's Tennessee win and they're in. Probably several other teams win and you're in. And so there's some teams that could lose and play their way out. What if Penn State loses to Maryland? That's a huge upset. Penn State has nothing on their resume that says they should automatically be in. So there's a lot that could happen over the next week. And we've said that for the last month and a half on here. So we'll see. So one other story I wanted to talk about, Harbin, before we get to the Tennessee basketball team. Um, David Sanders, Tennessee offensive tackle commit. He's been with Tennessee for a while. Been a big promoter of Tennessee. He's been on campus a bunch. He's the nation's number one offensive tackle. He committed to Tennessee, like I said, 2 or 3 months ago. But he made a surprise visit to the Ohio State University this weekend. It kind of caught people off guard. Started hearing something about this toward the middle end of this past week, and it did come to fruition. He was there for the Indiana game Saturday. Um, this is Tennessee's headline player in this class. Like I said, he's the nation's number one offensive tackle, 6'6", 290. It says here he's been committed since August. Ohio State's making a late push for him. I text some others in our group, in another text group yesterday. They had just found out about it. This has been something we've talked about on here, and a lot of people have talked about. This is a knock on Josh Heupel on the recruiting trail. He has not recruited high school offensive linemen worth a flip. He's done pretty well, I think, in the transfer portal, so I'm going to give him props there. But as far as bringing in high school talent and developing it, not been great. Tennessee does not need to lose David Sanders Jr. to Ohio State. Like I said, he's the cornerstone, one of the cornerstones of this class. That's how you win games in this conference is the front seven on both sides of the football, and he could be a key piece and a key cog in that wheel. I don't know what your thoughts on this, but there is a lot of uneasiness, it sounds like, around this player. A lot of insiders in the recruiting field are saying that Ohio State is, quote, looking good, or at least looking better than they were for David Sanders Jr. But this next couple of weeks is going to be interesting. What if Tennessee goes out there and loses to Vandy this Saturday? Does that affect his decision to come here? I got a text from somebody said it's the Mike Ellerby effect. I mean, I don't know. Tennessee needs to hold on to this guy. We got a top 10 class right now. You don't need to let somebody like that go. I don't know what they've offered him up there at Ohio State. I don't know what we've offered him, but we need to hold on to him. But wanted to throw that out there that has come up over the last 3 or 4 days, that he has gone up there for a visit, which shocked a lot of people that he went up there because he's been firmly with Tennessee for almost 2.5 months now. So keep your eye on that one. I don't know. Hopefully he doesn't flip. We did lose Douglas Utu, who flipped to Oregon a few weeks ago. And I remember he committed when we were in Omaha because after the national title game, it popped up on the ESPN bottom line. And I was like, man, we are just winning like crazy. We got one of the top offensive tackles in the country. Then David Sanders commits. We got two of the best high school offensive linemen in this class. And now one of them's gone. And now the other one's up at Columbus taking a visit. So they lose this one. I've got a lot of questions. I've already got a lot of questions about Tennessee's high school offensive lineman recruiting and why they can't bring in anybody and why they can't hold on to anybody. If they lose David Sanders, there's going to be a lot more people start to get a lot louder and ask a lot of questions. Agree or disagree?
I agree, but I think I have the answer. money talks, BS walks. Phil Knight, Nike, he to put in a nutshell of Vutu. I don't know anything about that situation, but he already said that Oregon had infinite NIL funds to bring a national championship to Eugene before he dies. So checkbook probably got open, which is fine. We've seen this earlier this week with what was his name, Julian Lewis? Is that his name?
I think so, yes.
Quarterback from Louisiana, been committed to LSU since January. All of a sudden, just randomly decommits and commits to Michigan. The rumored number is somewhere between $10 and $12 million. Which, hey, congrats, guys. Those of you that pushed for this is what you get. The highest bidder wins. I'm not saying I'm against NIL, but we're going to have to cap it eventually because this is worse than professional ball as far as Wild Wild West goes. It's literally highest bidder. And if it works out for us, great. But it's not college football as we knew it for years anymore. It's just not. And it is what it is. And I think the case with old boy going to Ohio State, I'm sure a number got thrown at him. And also, he's probably just keeping his options open. I mean, that's obviously also a case as well. Can't blame him on that. I mean, if you could hand pick, first of all, if I could hand pick any college I wanted to go to in the country to play my favorite sport, I wouldn't commit in August or June or whenever. I wouldn't, unless I absolutely knew. I don't know. It's 99% checkbook got open. It piqued his interest, and we'll see. Obviously, Tennessee has resources as well. If we want them bad enough, we'll counter. I mean, it just is what it is. You can knock Heupel for it because he has recruited just about every other position group well. So that is questions, but I think the general answer, a lot of these players are going to go to the highest bidder because nothing's guaranteed. I mean, how many college players can you think of in your lifetime that were the absolute man and got hurt in college, and they may have made it to the pros but didn't do anything, fizzled out very early, didn't make that much money? I mean, that thought process is in a lot of these guys' heads. I'm not saying all these guys grew up with nothing, but I can promise you that 99.9% of them didn't grow up with $10 million at their fingertips. I can promise you that.
No.
Grow up bad at all, but if somebody handed me a briefcase with $10 million in it, I'd fold more than likely. We can act high and mighty and act like we want to blame these kids. Being 17, $18 million, being 17, 18 years old and getting offered millions of dollars, logic's going to go out the window. Hell, logic goes out the window when fractions of that money gets thrown at grown adults.
I mean, what did Buddy Garrity do in Friday Night Lights? He did the same thing. He's like, come play for the Panthers. I'll get you whatever you want. I don't think, in my mind, I don't want to talk long about this, but in my mind, I don't think this is what NIL was supposed to be. NIL was supposed to be where these student athletes could make money off of their name, image, and likeness, NIL, and do commercials, get royalties off of jersey sales, things like that. I don't think we envisioned it being, hey, come here and play for 10 million. We'll give you $10 million. Just come here and play. Like $10 million for what? Just to play? We're going to give you 10 million, Nico, $8 million just to come here and play football. What's he doing besides playing on the field to earn that? You know what I'm saying? Like, where are the commercials? Where are the advertisements? You know, what is he getting for his jersey sale? That's what I thought it would be. I didn't think it was going to be a thing where these collectives sat down at a table, at the dinner table, in these guys, young men's houses with their families and opened up a briefcase and there's cash in it. No, I'm not saying that's what's happening, but they're offering them the moon. I don't know that that's what this was supposed to be. I just, in my eyes, that's not what it was supposed to be. It was supposed to be like, these guys, these universities are making a ton of money off of these guys, and they're getting scholarships. Yes, you know, they're getting $25,000-$30,000 a year to go to school. That's worth a lot in itself, but they're also not getting anything else out of it. You know, they're selling Peyton Manning number 16 jerseys when he was here. My parents bought me one when I was little. Peyton didn't get anything off of that. But now these guys can. And I thought that's what it was supposed to be. But some of these, I mean, I'm sure they're still getting that, but some of them are just literally getting money to come to this school, whatever school it may be. And I don't know what the answer is. I think they're going to have to find a way to get a commissioner in place. I don't know who that is. I think with all this conference realignment, that's probably going to be up in the air for a while because I don't think conference realignment's done. And until they get that figured out, there's no rules on it. You know, if they want to offer somebody $15 million to play somewhere, they're going to do it if it gets to that point. So it's all about what the player's worth and what they think they're worth. It's no different than free agency in the NFL. It's just on a smaller scale, but the top players are eating up the majority of the money. I mean,
I'd argue it's on a larger scale than the NFL.
Well, I mean,
you have in the NFL.
Well, true. I'm just saying the number of players getting offered is not like in the NFL. You've got 53-man rosters and there's people coming and going constantly. And, you know, here it just seems like, you know, is anybody at UT Chattanooga getting offered anything? Maybe to do some commercials for local car dealership in Chattanooga, but that's probably going to be about it. But then you got Nico Iamaleava at Tennessee getting $8 million just to come up here and play quarterback. But anyways, it's going to be interesting to watch that story, but to also watch this David Sanders thing over the next couple of weeks. Keep your eye on that one. Before we get out of here, Harbin, Tennessee basketball coming back from the Bahamas with another trophy. They look good this week down there against Virginia and Baylor. I hardly knew her.
That's the best time.
Yeah, Tennessee beat Virginia 64-42. That was a rough first half for both teams shooting the basketball, but Tennessee came out hot in the second half, put Virginia away. Virginia is a shell of its former self after Tony Bennett resigned abruptly about a month and a half ago. And then Tennessee caught Baylor probably at a good time. They played a double overtime game against St. John's the night before. And Tennessee, the score was probably not as close as the game was. It was 77-62, but Tennessee was up by 28 at one point. Kind of coasted to the end there. But Chaz Lanier just dominated the Bears on Friday night. He, let's see here. Where's his total at here? In 33 minutes, he was 7 of 10 from 3-point range, 25 points, all in the first half. Igor Milicic had 10. Jordan Gainey was 16. Cade Phillips had a nice game with 11. I'm getting close, Harbin. Our friend of the show, I shouldn't say he's friend of the show. Our friend Josh Walker always gets on me for this, for saying Tennessee's a contender for this or a contender for that. Like I've been saying Tennessee football is a contender for the playoffs and for the last 2 months. I'm getting close. I'm not going to say Tennessee's Final Four contender, but I'm getting close to saying Tennessee's one of the top contenders for the SEC championship in basketball this year. and then we'll see how the season keeps going. But I think this team, honestly, I think this team could be better than last year's because they're more balanced, especially on the offensive end. They got more guys that can come down and make a basket when they needed to. Last year, it was basically Dalton, get the ball to Dalton Connect and let him cook. Um, and they had some nice role players on that team. But I think this year you got Igor who can score when he wants to at different points. You got Chaz Lanier who can do it. You've got a little bit better post presence with Cade Phillips, Okpara, um, uh, what's his face gets back healthy. Estrella, I think he can contribute some. I just think this team's more balanced, and they play like Rick Barnes teams in the past. They play really, really elite defense and watch the turnovers. This team shoots the ball so much better than this team did last year. I think this team could make another run in March. We'll see. Hope you got to. It's too early to start saying that. You said it last week. This is November basketball. You can't overreact to winning or losing. But my takeaway from these two games is Tennessee's one of the top 10 teams in the country again.
Yeah, we look good so far. That Virginia game, first half was rough to watch. Second half, we figured it out, pulled away. Talent prevailed, for lack of a better term. In that Baylor game, I think you're onto something. I think we did catch them at the right time, but we absolutely beat the hell out of them. Like, I remember watching the last few minutes at work. What was that? Was that Friday or Saturday night?
The Baylor game,
It was Friday night.
Friday night was the Baylor game.
Yeah. I mean, we decimated them, and then I think we pulled the dogs off. I'll say that just for conversation's sake. Baylor scored 2 or 3 buckets in a row, and I remember looking at a guy, and I was like, hellfire. I was like, this is going to end up looking a lot closer than what it was. Lo and behold, it ended up being a 15-point game, which Baylor was ranked, what, 13 or 14?
Yes.
Which, like we've preached, November rankings mean absolutely nothing. But a ranked victory, 15-point win. The part that bothered me about those last 3 or 4 minutes, though, when we get to March and we start looking at, obviously it's going to go down as a key victory if Baylor stays a good basketball team. But if they start dissecting and looking at scores, all people are going to see is, oh, Tennessee beat Baylor by 15. Not a single person in the world outside of Knoxville is going to be like, well, Tennessee was up by 25 for 3/4 of that game. That's the only thing that bothered me about the last 3 minutes. But
Yeah.
I love me some Igor Milicic. Chaz Lanier has one of the most pure jump shots I think I've ever seen in an orange jersey. And this may irritate me at some point in January or February, or even March for that matter. But that dude is not scared to let it fly even when he's not on. But I think that's important. I think we need at least one guy like that. Would you agree with that?
Yeah. No, I don't disagree with that.
Especially, I love Rick Barnes. I'm not saying anything bad, but under Rick Barnes' coach teams here, we get into these lulls on offense where it's just like we just can't get anything going for 4 or 5 minutes. And most of that is because nobody, or it felt like almost everybody was scared to kind of take a couple shots in a row if they weren't on. Last year we had Dalton Connect, and he'd fire it up whenever he wanted to, which very rarely was he off. He was that good of a player. But I think Chaz Lanier's that guy too. it's like the Dion Waiters quote. It's one of my favorite basketball quotes of all time. Said I'd rather go 0 for 30 than 0 for 9 because if you go 0 for 9, that means you lost confidence. And if you remember Dion Waiters at all, that quote's hilarious. But I mean, you got to have at least one guy like that that's one of your best players that's not scared to go 4 of 17 from the field or 3 of 15 or what have you. Uh, because what we've learned under Rick Barnes, Tennessee basketball, as good as our defense is, very, very rarely are we going to get blown out, even if we shoot it 30% from the field. We can win in rock fights. We can win in shootouts. It just kind of depends on the night. You need a guy that's not scared to keep firing it when he's not necessarily on. Because in basketball, especially with a jump shooter, a lot of times all you need to see is one or two go in and you're back.
Yeah.
It's kind of a cliche, but it's true.
That
You find it's kind of like any other sport, really. Like you keep doing the same thing. It's not necessarily working, but you finally find one and it feels right. And all of a sudden it's all the confidence in the world. And I think in basketball, it's exaggerated to an extent. So I'm fully on board with letting him fire it.
Lanier kind of did that against Virginia. I mean, Tennessee was struggling shooting the ball. They were firing it. They weren't playing hot potato and like Jackie Moon and semi-pro. Give it to me. Back to him. Back, back and forth, back and forth. They were shooting. They just weren't making it. And Lanier, there was one possession, 17, 18-minute mark, second half. He shot one. Ball kicked right back to him. He shot it again, made it. And from there on out, it was on. He didn't miss. The rest of the team didn't miss. And then they continued against Baylor. But I don't know. It'd be interesting to watch this team as we go forward. They just seem different. They seem a little deeper, a little more balanced than that team was last year. That team was very good last year. Don't get me wrong. And Dalton Connect was a big part of it. But there was times in those games last year where they would come down on the offensive end and four players would go stand on the one side of the court and Dalton Connect. They would stand there and watch him. And I don't think this team is necessarily going to do that. I mean, Chaz Lanier may be the guy that they go to, but I don't think it's going to be one of those where they just come down and just let him cook over there by one-on-one, kind of like an NBA offensive set a lot of times. But we'll see. Tennessee's off to a great start, though. They've got some nice wins already over Baylor and Louisville, and they're at home this week against UT Martin on Wednesday night or Wednesday afternoon, 4:00. And then they're off until December 3rd next week, where they host Syracuse, the Orange, in the SEC ACC Challenge at Thompson Bowling Arena. So they got some tough matchups coming up. Syracuse and Miami and Illinois, 3 straight games after the Thanksgiving break. But they're off to a good start. Keep your eye on those guys. Harbin already did his hater and loser of the week, so I'm going to do mine very quickly. And Harbin, I don't know if you saw this, but known hater and loser Danny Cannell was at it again this weekend. Did you see this? Did you hear this, Harbin?
I did, and I think I know where you're going with this.
So those that know me know I am no Atlanta Braves fan. But I respect some of their players, especially this guy, Chipper Jones. Some could argue that he's one of the greatest, if not the greatest, switch hitters in the game of baseball that baseball's ever seen. Hall of Famer, great player. So Danny Cannell, like I said, known hater and loser. He hates the SEC. Tweeted yesterday, "Congrats, Florida. You are the Kansas Jayhawks of the SEC." I guess that's in reference to Kansas playing spoiler, ruining some playoff chances for teams, aka BYU and Colorado. Florida's kind of done the same thing here with Ole Miss. So Chipper Jones had heard enough of it. He fires back, "Hey, Danny." Sorry.
Before we say it is important to note that Danny Cannell is a Florida State guy.
Oh yeah.
So just for context, ACC, but most importantly, Florida State. He played at Florida State, correct?
Yes. He was a quarterback at Florida State in the 90s.
Yeah. Obviously, he hates the SEC, but he hates Florida
Yes.
more than anything. So I just
So
wanted to.
Chipper Jones fires back and says, "Hey Danny, I say this with all due respect for your mediocre career and even less mediocre career after throwing senseless picks at Florida State. STFU. We know you hate the SEC. We get it. No need to pee in our cornflakes because you're on your period. Congrats on Charleston Southern." I just, it was great. Danny, I can't stand Danny Cannell. I can't stand the guy. He has hated on, maybe that's his shtick, his thing. That's how he makes money. But he has hated on the SEC for years, and he's already another thing he put out this week was SEC teams are going to be afraid to go on the road up north in the playoffs. Are you kidding me? Seriously? Why is the SEC afraid of anybody? I don't think Tennessee, if they have to go to Happy Valley, we might be nervous because of how Tennessee plays on the road at night. And that's going to be a night game on Friday or Saturday. But I don't think Tennessee's going to go up there and be afraid to play in Happy Valley. It's going to be a tough place to play, but they're not going to be afraid. I don't think Ole Miss would. Who's going to be afraid to go to Indiana? Nobody. I mean, there's going to be somebody's probably going to have to go to Ohio State. It might be an SEC team. Somebody's going to have to go to Penn State. Probably going to be an SEC team. So somebody from the Southeastern Conference is going to have to go up north. But for him to sit there and say the SEC teams are shaking in their boots is ridiculous. He's an idiot. He's a loser. He is a Florida State ACC homer, but that conference stinks. They're not even good at basketball anymore. I think North Carolina and Duke are their only teams that are worth a dime in that conference. I hope I don't regret that after the next couple of weeks when Tennessee plays Syracuse and Miami. But I think the SEC has ran past them in basketball. But they're not good at anything anymore. They're mediocre, mid at football, and they're the same way at basketball. So Danny Cannell is my hater and loser of the week, Harbin.
It's a good one.
Yes. So, well, that's this week's show, Harbin. This is one of my favorite weeks, sporting weeks of the year. And here's why. Not only is there rivalry football on this weekend starting Thursday, you got NFL games on Thursday, Cowboys, Lions. I don't know who else is playing, Dolphins, maybe. Chiefs and Raiders are playing big rivalry games, and that's great. But college football, this is always rivalry weekend in college football. You know, Tennessee, Vandy, Ohio State, Michigan, those two shouldn't be in the same breath, but it's changed a lot now with the realignment, but you still got your rivalry games, Florida and Florida State, North Carolina, NC State play this weekend, Georgia Tech, like I mentioned, Tennessee, Vandy, Texas A&M, Arizona State, Notre Dame, USC. This is like tradition. This is what this weekend's about. Ole Miss, Mississippi State in the Egg Bowl. So Eastern Michigan, Central Michigan, or Western Michigan. I can't remember which one. All those games are being played this week. Why isn't Carson Newman playing Tusculum this weekend? They need to be. They're in the playoffs. So.
The regular season's already over.
That's true. So there you go.
By the way, speaking of Carson Newman, shout out to them under first-year head coach. His name's escaping me, but he was Navy's offensive coordinator last year. Inherited a rough patch of Carson Newman football, and they qualified for the Division II college football playoff.
Really, 5 seed, right?
I believe. Well, they do it differently because there's 32 teams that make it.
Oh,
so I don't know if they do sides of 16 or 4 brackets of 8 or however they do it. I don't know, but yes, they are a 5 seed. I don't think they're the 5th seed overall. I think they're the 5th seed on their side, maybe, because I think they finished the regular season ranked. I do know that, but I want to say they finished around like 18 to 22. But either way, hell of a first season for Carson Newman. My alma mater, not to brag. Um, but
Looks like
and
so. Looks like they
they're doing this
lost.
all.
Looks like
Actually,
they've already.
I think their first playoff game was on Saturday. I
Yeah,
didn't
it
even.
looks like they lost to Miles, Miles, 14-13. So it looks like you're right as far as the bracket. It looks like they got four different pods. One, two, three, four, five,
Heartbreak
six
Coach Devil.
teams. Yeah, so lost to the number 4 seed Miles University or College. Miles moves on to play Powerhouse Valdosta State. So there you go. But it
Unbelievable.
was a very good season for Carson Newman because they've been down the last few years, and especially since Ken Sparks retired and he's passed away. But they've just not been able to find that magic since. But maybe they're on the right track for that.
Also something to keep an eye on within the next maybe 5 years, 10 years max. There's rumblings around Jefferson County that Carson Newman is going to make the jump to D1.
Ooh, FCS or FBS?
Definitely FCS. Come on now.
Maybe Tennessee could schedule him.
There have been rumors of that since like my freshman year there, but considering a lot of the things that they're doing around and on campus, it seems like they're legitimately pushing for it. They're building, I think they're in the process of building two or three different dorm buildings, upgrading and adding new uh, class buildings as well. Um, Try and get the student enrollment up to make that feasible. But yeah, something to keep an eye on. So we'll see. Maybe join the SoCon, get a little rivalry going with UTC.
There we go.
Fun fact: UTC scheduled Carson Newman. It's either early 2000s or late 90s in a bye game, and Carson Newman went down there and ran the wing tee and beat him by like 7. And UTC has refused to schedule them ever since. So that would potentially be a fun rivalry game in the future with a little bit of a backstory to it. So something to keep an eye on for our neighbors east on 11E.
So I just looked it up here. The last time these two teams played, Chattanooga versus Carson Newman, let's see, August 30th, 2007. Carson Newman won 29-17.
Yeah, there you go.
So there you go.
There you go.
It looks like they have played 4 times. Looks like Chattanooga won in 1915, 93-0 at Chamberlain Field. I guess that was in Chattanooga. They
Well,
played one.
that was because of the Titanic.
What? Then they
There was
played.
some key players for Carson Newman on the Titanic.
It looked like Carson Newman turned it around. They played again in 1919 and only lost 20-0, but then fell on hard times in the 1920 season. They lost 83-0 to the Chattanooga Moccasins. And then they did not play again for 87 years until they played in 2007 at Finley Stadium, where Carson Newman won 29-17. So a little lopsided scores there, but yeah, it'd be interesting to watch. Remember, if that happens, you heard it here first. But back to my story. One of the great weekends, or one of the great weeks of the year, there is basketball. I was watching some this afternoon over the NFL. There is basketball on like crazy. College basketball feast week is, I think, what they call it. Auburn and Iowa State play tomorrow night in the Maui Invitational, number 4 versus number 5. Great matchup in the early season. A lot of basketball to watch this week. One of the great weeks of the year. And then you got football. You got NFL, NCAA football this weekend. So you can eat turkey, watch football and basketball all weekend. And the weather is not going to be great on Thursday, Friday, Saturday. So you might as well just plop down on the couch, do like I do, get in your sleeping bag and watch basketball and football all weekend. So anyways, that's about all we got for this week's show. I want to give a shout out to everybody that watched this show, including the idiots from Georgia that got on our YouTube. Thank you for watching the show. You have led us to our highest rated episode ever, Harbin. Just exploded on YouTube. So thank you to the Georgia idiots that got on there. I shouldn't say all of them. We got several comments from some Georgia fans. They were really getting on me about calling me whiny and a baby for my comments about how we were treated down in Georgia last weekend. But there were several on there that said, hey, you know what? That's not what we want to be like. Sorry. I'm sure there's some people at UT that act like that, which we said there are. We know that. But yeah, shout out to everybody that tuned in this week on the YouTube channel, especially. A lot of listeners, a lot of views this week. So if you haven't yet, like and subscribe, share the episode, tell all your friends about us, and we'll get you out there. Sorry that we didn't have a tailgate yesterday at the UTEP game. I know Harbin had to work. He couldn't be there. Several others had some family activities going on yesterday. And I guess with it being UTEP, they couldn't make it. So we had a very, very, very abbreviated tailgate. It was me, Big Montana, Slagle, and Cam literally standing outside my truck. We drank probably 2 chocolate milks each over about a 20-minute time period. And Thomas was there, Thomas and Tiffany. Jared and Jeff Burton was there. So shout out to them. And then we walked to the stadium. So we were there probably literally 20 minutes. And we basically tailgated in the East Skybox. But if anybody came by to see us and we weren't there, sorry. But the normal crew was MIA this weekend, and so we just didn't host anything. But maybe we'll get to host something here Saturday before Christmas. It's like we said, there's still an outside chance that happens. Will it happen? I'm not very confident, but it could. So say your prayers, take your vitamins that Tennessee might, brother or sister, that Tennessee might play another home game again. And we're back tailgating one final time at Neyland Stadium. And it'll be right before Christmas. How awesome would that be if that could happen? It would be electric.
Ho, ho,
ho. What? All right, Harbin, any parting words before we head out?
No. Happy Thanksgiving to all.
Yes.
Each and every one of y'all that listen to us ramble from time to time or all the time or just this one time. Happy Thanksgiving to y'all. Hope y'all have a great week or extended weekend or just single day with your family. Hope y'all enjoy it. Be safe. Yeah, it's a fun time of the year. It's fun and stressful time for some. So, just hope y'all have a great week, and we'll recap this weekend or next week.
Yeah, we'll be here Sunday night. I'm gonna cut some wood on Friday with my dad. So,
Sunday night, I'll be in Valdosta, Georgia.
Oh, so Jake plays next week. That's right.
He does.
And we didn't have him on. We've screwed him.
No. Every time we've done this, we've recorded from where we were.
Oh, that's right. I'm sorry. I was getting ahead of myself. Sorry.
So 99%, next week's episode, we'll be having Mr. Jake Minot on, previewing his week, and we'll see where it goes.
I'm excited for him. I need to get in on that inward half deal that he's got going. That y'all are now brand. Their inward half's getting some free pub here on the show this week. You all are now the two brand ambassadors for inward half this next week.
Yeah. I don't know if I'm obligated or if I should even say this, but shout out Edward Half for
You
hooking my
can.
boy up, and shout out Todd and Mr. Luke Scalf. Uh, he kind of helped bridge the deal. Um, Jake got a big old hookup, and while he was there, he thought of me and he hooked me up with some stuff. So shout out Inward Half. Enjoy the walk in. If you need any golf apparel or if you just kind of need any collared shirts or anything like that, shop local.
And if Todd and or Luke are listening, remember poor O negative niece here that he gave you all a free shout out on here. I do need to get somehow I gotta get Jake. This isn't the TV round, so we're gonna hold off on the stickers or something to give him until he gets to the TV round. So but I have faith in him that he'll get there. So we'll work something out. But Harbin, happy Thanksgiving. Hope you eat a lot of turkey this week and don't work too hard. I've got my sister and her family are coming in, so we'll spend some time with them on Thanksgiving here, and then all focus, laser focused on the Vanderbilt Commodores coming up this Saturday, First Bank Stadium in Nashville. Historic First Bank Stadium in Nashville, formerly known as Dudley Field, I think, or whatever it was called. I call it a glorified Texas high school stadium.
Is it even glorified?
Probably not glorified, no. But anyways, everybody have a happy Thanksgiving. I'm Negative Niece. That's Harbin. We'll be back hopefully on Sunday night with special guest Jake Minot to preview his round. We'll look back at Tennessee's game against Vandy, and hopefully we win. And we'll take a look at the playoff standings. But until then, have a happy Thanksgiving. I'm Negative Niece for Harb. We'll see you guys next week on the Section YY8 podcast.